I am
Hello.
live. Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and thank you for bearing with us while we had to reconstruct our entire scene. We are 80-Bit Newscast. Every single week, we run through the week's video game headlights. I am your host, Termite, and
I am also your host, Penguin.
thank you. We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite. He's Penguin, and I am Termite. And we're completely thrown off because of all of the...
Previously established.
Yes, that was our normal intro. I had to redo it just to make the flow feel right.
Good.
So
It's fine. We just do
welcome
this.
to our 80-Bit Newscast. We run through the week's news. We got a couple of headlines tonight. What are we talking about?
Great, yeah. So we're gonna share with you the headlines. We're gonna go through each one. We're gonna give you our thoughts and feedback on them. It's our thoughts and our feedback because it's things we care about. Yeah, we're not like the BBC here, but we will we will cover what we are most interested in and give you our thoughts and feedback on them. So, anyways, the show tonight we'll be covering the following headlines. We'll be talking about the Steam Deck and whatever that is. It's probably going to take the meat of our show, quite frankly. Netflix had some interesting gaming-related announcements, so we'll talk about that. List has announced that they will be announcing things related to Persona. More delays, as always, and yeah, that's about it. More delays. So we'll talk about all that stuff and more.
Housekeeping.
Please give your thought. Yes. We're like, what? Wait, what happens here? If you have thoughts and feedback, please, and are watching this live, please share those thoughts on Twitch. Just drop it in the chat. We will wait till the end to really answer them, unless they're just quick shout outs or quick answers that we can give. But we're going to just try to blast through these news stories. But please, please, please don't be shy and say hi and share your thoughts with us. We'd love to take some time at the end to address anything that you have for us. And then whether it's a correction or a question or a clarification or whatever. If you are watching this later on YouTube, then Termite will really quickly tell you where you can share your thoughts and feedback with us if you missed us live.
Before I run into that, I do want to wish our friend of our show, my dear older brother, T-Bone, a very happy birthday. He turns 30... Happy birthday! You turn 38 today. So...
Ooh.
Big shout out to him. It's a live show, so I can do that. Yes, you can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bit podsmash. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets where you can find all of our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. You can create your own subreddit. We have a link to our Discord server and all of our show notes. You can interact with us there and ask us all of our questions, give us all of our feedbacks, and engage in conversation with our community. So we'd love to have you there. Also, we have a weekly video game podcast with episodes that go live every Monday at midnight. We just launched our 200th episode today. 200 episodes today. It's there, so go check it out. We have all the major podcast platforms, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and that Apple podcast platform thing that a lot of people care about. That's all there, 80bitpodsmash.com. Go check it out. We are everywhere. If you want us somewhere we're not, let us know, and we'll put ourselves there. So go check it out. First off,
my last comment.
Yes.
My last comment before we get started is viewers may have noticed that my background has been taken over by baby stuff.
Yes.
The only nerdy thing I have back there is my Moogle. That's right above my finger here. They're by Adipose as well from Doctor Who, but it's quite sad that my your background's all cool and mine has been stripped bare by my wife.
Well, thank you. So. I actually think that looks a little cluttered back here, but also note that you could be pulled away in a second's notice upon the arrival of your second child, so that's kind of fun.
Still no baby. 39 weeks.
All
We're
right.
still not due date yet, so
that,
it's still technically early. But.
This Skyward Sword poster is suddenly relevant again, so that's kind of neat, because that's been there for a long time, but, now here we are.
All right.
Steam Deck.
News, yes. So the Steam Deck is announced. It's a brand new piece of hardware by Valve, the company that makes Steam, obviously, and it is a handheld gaming PC with a form factor that many might find quite familiar because it looks very much like the Switch, except bigger and beefier and made like a gaming PC.
I'd like to ground our discussions starting with an article that kind of describes all of the details. So I'm actually copying an article, citing. I'm not copying. I'm citing an article because I'm not writing anything. I'm talking. Citing an article from The Verge written by Jay Peters, Shane Gartenberg, Richard Lawler, and Sean Hollister. It's the first time I've ever seen an article written by 4 people. But go check that. Go give them the link. Whatever you want to do. Valve's gaming handheld is called the Steam Deck, and it's shipping in December. Valve just announced the Steam Deck. It's a long-rumored Switch-like handheld gaming device. It will begin shipping in December, and reservations opened July 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Starts at $399, and you can buy it in $529 and $649 models as well. That's all USD. The device has an AMD APU containing a quad-core Zen 2 CPU with 8 threads and 8 compute units worth of AMD RDNA 2 graphics, alongside 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM. There are 3 different storage tiers. The cheaper one is the 64 gigabyte eMMC. There's a 256 NVMe and a 512 gigabyte NVMe, and now I'm paraphrasing, according to Valve. You can also expand the available storage using a high-speed micro SD slot. The Steam Deck has a huge number of control options. There are 2 thumbsticks, but also 2 small Steam controller-style trackpads beneath the thumbsticks, which could give you more precision for things like first-person shooters. The front of the Steam Deck also has A, B, X, Y buttons, a D-pad, and a 7-inch 1280 by 800 touchscreen for 720p gameplay. The device also has a gyroscope for motion controls. Like the Switch, it has 2 shoulder trigger buttons on each side, and there are 4 back buttons, 2 on each side as well, with built-in microphones. There's a legend to all of deck ports and controls, so there's a picture and a diagram, so go check that out. As for the battery, it has an onboard 40 watt-hour battery, providing several hours of playtime for most games. For lighter use, the cases like game streaming, smaller 2D games, or web browsing, you can expect the maximum battery life of 7 to 8 hours. You can play Portal 2 for 4 hours on this thing. If you limit it to 30 FPS, you're going to be playing for 5 to 6 hours. And if you need to pause your game, the Steam Deck offers a quick suspend resume feature built into SteamOS that will let you put the device into sleep mode and pick up where you left off later. I generally don't read this much, but these really are all the tech specs for the deck, and I want to run through them because they matter. So bear with me, a little bit more reading to do. The deck can be plugged into your TV, monitor, or even your old CRT if you have the right cables. It will sell. There's a dock you can use to prop up the system and plug it into external displays. So it comes with a fully fledged USB-C ports that contain HDMI, Ethernet, and USB, as well as standard Bluetooth, the first real deviation from the Switch. The Switch does not have Bluetooth. This does. On the software side of things, Steam Deck runs what Valve is calling a new version of SteamOS. That is optimized for the handheld's mobile form factor, but the actual operating system is based on Linux and will use Proton as a compatibility layer to allow Windows-based games to run without requiring that developers specifically port them to the Steam Deck. So there's a little bit of a conversion to go from Windows to its native platform. Ultimately, though, it's a full-fledged Linux computer, meaning that more technical users will be able to jump out of the regular Linux desktop too. Valve notes they'll be able to plug in a mouse, a keyboard, a monitor, and install other game stores. So Epic Game Store, Battle.net.
Plug it in and plug it into a dock, and you can just work right off of it. It's heavy enough.
Regular PC software, browse the web, and more. You can do pretty much everything. Let's see. And there's a Valve's Remote Play feature. You can stream games from your actual gaming PC. If you find that this thing isn't beefy enough for you and you're in your house on your Wi-Fi, you can do that. Reservations for all 3 went up on Friday. There's a $5 reservation fee, 1 reservation per person. And then it goes into talking about...
$5 reservation fee. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Does that get credited back to you when...
I have no idea. It doesn't say.
Pre-order?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It says a refundable $5 reservation fee, but...
Well, I'm assuming refundable if you decide to cancel it, but does it go into the... is it to reserve this thing, does it cost at baseline $390... Or wait, no, sorry, $405?
Right.
$404?
Doesn't say. It just says there's a $5 reservation fee. Your reservation.
Let's talk about it. I want to talk about it.
Yeah. So there you have it. Yeah. Steam or Valve is creating hardware. One more piece of context. I apologize for continuing to go on with this article, but in the past, Valve has come out with a VR headset that was like a legit high-end $1,000 VR experience. this is a $400 entry-level Steam Deck, which seems to be a different strategy than what Valve has done in the past. And there were these failed PC, I don't know if you remember these, Steam machines, that were like little form factor PCs in a box that they kind of just quietly brushed under the rug and they disappeared. Right. So yeah, Valve's next foray into hardware. So you want to talk about it? What do you want to talk about? Yeah.
Well, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. The big thing is obviously this is great for PC gamers. I mean, this is it's always great to see more competition enter the market at the beginning. I really do want this thing to take off in the same way that I want anything to be successful and take off. As I mentioned to you when I first saw the thing, I was like, wow, the lines between PCs and consoles have blurred significantly now, because you have basically now this thing, your Steam library is what this syncs to. So a lot of users, unlike any other console or handheld in the history of consoles and handhelds, to my knowledge, unlike any of them, you're going to have potentially thousands and thousands of games to play immediately on this thing upon buying it, and it will run many of them pretty well. Many of them about as well as your PC does, and only the highest end, latest ones it probably won't be able to run as well. So it's a pretty cool idea. Where I'm disappointed is in the level of toxicity being thrown at Nintendo as a result of this. It seems like the internet has almost overnight gone from praising the Switch and all of its glory to then suddenly being like, bad Nintendo sucks, Steam forever, yay Valve. And that's not what happened. What happened is the thing is popular enough that Nintendo's detractors now feel emboldened to come out of the woodwork and trash the Switch for no reason whatsoever.
After loving it? Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is the people now who are trashing it aren't the people who actually love the Switch. They're the people who dislike Nintendo but didn't feel like they could trash the Switch without being downvoted or whatever. Now they're like, yeah, I can trash the Switch all I want. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but you don't just don't be toxic about it. But this thing's not gonna. Ultimately, again, there's lots of discourse floating around there about, is this going to kill consoles? Is this going to kill Nintendo? It's like, absolutely not. Like, this is every single time something like this comes out, that's always thrown around. Is console gaming dead? Is Nintendo dead? It's like, no, it's not. This is a great, really cool piece of hardware for people who want it, and for people who can afford it, and for people who want to take their Steam library on the go. If it works well, this is still an entirely untested device. Who knows if it'll, who knows what bugs it'll have. Maybe it'll have its own version of Joy-Con drift or whatever. Like, it's completely untested. So, I mean, people are still taking the same risk pre-ordering it as they do anything. Which is funny because, again, that's another thing the gaming community tends to be like, never pre-order stuff. Don't give them your money before it's proven. And then here they go, they're like, Steam Deck, I'll give you all my money. Also, I will point out the one spec that is disappointing on that thing is 64 gigabytes isn't even enough space to install Call of Duty. And yes, you can get expandable storage, but like, it's like, who knows if the expandable storage, if the serial ports will run it fast enough? Will you experience more load times than the internal storage? Who freaking knows? So there's a lot to unpack with the Steam Deck. So
yeah, and comparing it to Nintendo is one thing, and I'll get there in just a sec. But one of the tech specs that I want to call out here, because everyone about the new PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles were all about the flops. How powerful is this thing?
Right.
So I just did a quick Google search, and it looks like the GPU on the Switch Deck. The Steam Deck is 1.6 teraflops. Okay, now a base PS4, which everyone consider, especially in the PC gaming space, the base PS4 everyone poops on, is 1.84 teraflops. So the Steam Deck is not even as powerful as a PlayStation 4 base model.
Right.
So it has a 720p screen for a reason, folks. It has a 4-hour shelf or a 4-hour battery life for a reason. This thing is going to be cranking out. Now we can talk about the Switch. So the Nintendo Switch has, the ability to dock and have 1080p experiences and a little bit of a boost in like power. Also, you can take it
Right.
with you on the go. It has detachable controllers that you can share with each other. There's a magic in Nintendo's Switch that this does not even compete with. So they're still
Right.
very different products. Also, Nintendo's first-party lineup of software is unparalleled. Like, it's amazing. And yes, we
Right.
can go down the path of like critiquing Nintendo lately with some of the not flops that they've produced, but like less than amazing titles like Mario,
Right, well,
Mario
and
Golf, right? But
And Nintendo makes some really obnoxious business decisions. Like, there are plenty of reasons to have beef with Nintendo. If people have beef with Nintendo, that's fine. Like, I understand. I have beef with Nintendo.
Yeah.
I'm not just like a complete fanboy, throwing my laurels in adulation of every single fart that Nintendo poops out of themselves. Like, I'm not. That's not me. But nevertheless, you're right. They tend to put out quality games. They have put out quality games. They know how to leverage their IPs, and they're constantly innovating. Like,
And don't forget, the Nintendo Switch has sold over 87 million consoles themselves with an attach rate of first-party software unlike any other. You can do a quick Google search right now, and you can find attach rate records being set from Mario Kart 8 to Animal Crossing to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had an over 100% attach rate on release. Like, more people bought copies of the game than the console itself. So there you have that. So Nintendo is not in any danger. This is not even
and
not
the
even
Steam Deck,
close.
it's one of those things where it's going to get lots of talk on the internet, and people are going to talk about it, but it's really only going to be popular with PC gamers and PC gamers particularly who are utilizing Steam already in that and invested in that ecosystem. I can't really see. I saw someone point out that like Nintendo's demographic for the Switch are people who are like, they're targeting either kids. Or they're targeting people who are looking to buy a second console. Very few people. There are people out there. I'm not gonna, there are exceptions to every rule, but there are very few people who are buying the Switch necessarily as their primary console.
Right.
People are either primarily playing games on something like a PlayStation or an Xbox, or they're playing games primarily on their PC. So a lot of people are looking to, but Nintendo's trying to get that market that's like, ooh, you want a secondary console though? You want to snag something else? We got that. We got you covered. You can take it on the go. And so like, I can't really see a lot of people outside, especially at the price point that it's at, with the specs that it has. I can't see a lot of people in those two demographics of being, do you want a secondary console or do you want or are you like a kid, a parent, trying to buy something for your family? Most of the second category, the parents and the families and the kids, are going to go for the brand recognition of the Switch over the Steam Deck. And the other category of people are going to buy the thing that will allow them to have access to exclusives. And they're not going to have access to any games. People with the Steam Deck aren't going to have access to any games they don't already have access to on their computers. So I just don't understand. I mean, I get that it's super popular and people are buying it, and great, but I don't see it having like that expansion unless it's really popular. Unless it's really good, I don't really see it expanding in the same way, its market in the same way that Nintendo has been able to do with the Switch. Because everybody wants a Switch. So again, Nintendo's demographic, we talk about this all the time. Nintendo is not necessarily trying to cater to us, the hardcore gamers. They're not trying to cater to people who care about this stuff. They're trying to grab the person who didn't necessarily care about games but sees the Switch and is like, that's really cool, I want one. That's cool tech. So I saw a quote recently from Jim Ryan, talking about the PlayStation, of course, but I think it applies here. It's like, console makers aren't really ever. Jim Ryan said console makers aren't competing with each other anymore. They're competing for your entertainment attention in general. They're competing with Netflix. They're competing with movies, with theaters. They're competing with smartphones and social media. They're competing with Twitch. Like, they're competing with all the other forms of entertainment that want your attention. And I mean, this is great. This is Valve they're doing that, and I think it's still a smart move. I still think it's a pretty cool device, but it's by no means a Nintendo killer or even a console killer for that matter. Right. It's just,
it is a way to expand the PC folks, because PC is all about having, at least the way that I've experienced the PC way. It's all about having the best features, cutting edge technology with the highest frame rates and like the most gorgeous displays, way ahead of consoles. Of course, now it's different, but now this is just like your PC experience on the go that's limited. It's 720p. It doesn't have a lot of power, but $400, which is the price of a PlayStation 5 that doesn't have a disk drive, which is what this market is. Like, there's no disk drive here. There's no cartridge slot for a Steam Deck, right? So it's pretty much like
all digital. It's an all digital device.
Right. One's at home in 4K, and then one's on the go at 720, and it's going to play of course, your PC library, which is, your backlog. Everyone jokes about the Steam backlog being huge. So this does cut out a new market, I think, for PC, and it has a lot of potential for PC players. Like, if it wasn't $400 and it was relatively easy to find, I might want to pick one of these up just for fun, just to dabble.
PC, if you're invested in that, ultimately PC gaming, if you're in Steam in particular, if you're invested in that ecosystem already, you'll save on software because Steam has their killer sales all the time. So the thing might, quote, pay for itself if you're not buying. I mean, Nintendo, you're buying every game at $40 to $60 premium. So the software does, for the amount you're saving on the Switch. If you're looking at, are you a hardcore gamer and Switch versus Steam Deck, and you have to make that choice, you'll pay the price of the Steam Deck after paying 3 games on the Switch. So there's that. Whereas you may be able to find killer sales on some newer games on the Steam Deck. It just depends on what kind of gamer you are. So I can see people saying, hey, $400, that's a decent investment for being able to play my Steam library on the go, or being able to buy new games and play them, pick up where I left off on the go. If I'm at work, I can play whatever I'm latest playing. But you're right. One thing we haven't really hit on is it's not really going to be able to play everything. It's not going to be able to play your entire Steam library in the same way that your PC can, because it's limited to 720. It's limited in its frame rates, and it's limited in its space, its storage space, which could have huge impacts on its ability to load things. And I saw people already point out that there's a lot of really popular games that are not compatible with the version of Linux that they're running. Apex Legends.
It's a great
was one of the big. Yeah, Apex Legends was the big one. It's it can't run Apex Legends because of its compatibility. So.
And speaking of compatibility, it uses a Linux operating system with a product called Proton as a compatibility layer to allow Windows-based games to run, which means you're taking something that was built, compiled, and made for Windows, and you're going to make it compatible with Linux. So what sacrifices have to be made? What overhead is there for extra computation cycles? There's a question here. That's not a direct one-to-one. I have a Windows 10 PC with Steam installed, and I get DirectX API calls, or I get AMD Vulkan API calls, and there's all these other things that go on here, and there's this compatibility layer. How well is that? Because now the games don't need to just be compiled for Windows. They have to be tested and run on Proton, running on Linux, and that's a whole different...
You wanted to call it Protoss, which is a whole different...
Yeah. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Of course, Freudian slip.
I want to call it. I keep wanting to call it.
Okay. I thought I did. Yeah. I thought you were calling me
My
out.
life for ire.
And the second thing about it running on Linux is that you can do anything you want, like a full-fledged Linux computer, which is going to turn so many of these into piracy consoles. There's a market already of Chinese and Korean portable, mainstream, that are ridiculously cheap, little Raspberry Pi based consoles that look like Game Boys or whatever, that you can get all the emulators you want with all the ROMs you want to run on it. So that is appealing to some folks. They're like, oh, I can get my Steam library and I can get all my emulators and stuff. But at the same time, it's if you can already get all of your emulators on a much cheaper Chinese or Korean knockoff console, then why would you buy this thing? So it's a whole thing. It affects developers in a negative way when piracy is enabled. And I think this is just another leg of mainstream hardware allowing piracy and emulation in a bad way.
We'll see. We don't know that for sure yet. So who knows? They may have some crazy DRM stuff. But our friend Mark Pugner in the chat does say he's already fantasizing about playing Dwarf Fortress on the go. So that's fine. But all right, let's move on because we only have a few more minutes to cover a bunch more stories. So let's talk about Netflix. What's Netflix doing
apparently
with video games?
They're going to offer video games at no extra cost. So this article comes by Ryan Craddock over at Nintendo Life. TV and movie streaming giant Netflix could offer video games as part of its subscription from early as next year, a new report claims. According to Bloomberg, a person, quote, familiar with the situation, has stated that video games could appear within the next year, being available alongside the service's current content as a new standalone genre. Apparently, Netflix doesn't have any plans to charge any extra for the video game content on offer, presumably meaning that current subscribers would be able to access the games with no extra steps required. The report notes that Netflix has hired former EA and Oculus veteran Mike Verdu as its vice president of game development. Previously, Verdu worked as Facebook's vice president and was in charge of helping developers bring their games to the Oculus VR platform. The idea of Netflix adding games to its service isn't new. Reports surrounding the possibility first appeared back in May with the Stranger Things 3 The Game. But will the games like these end up being exclusive to Netflix services going forward? Are we going to have Netflix exclusive games? It's a whole thing.
Netflix is throwing their hat into the ring of big tech giants trying to break in as a video gaming platform, particularly with streaming. So here we go again. Another company, just like Stadia, just like Amazon. Here we have Netflix. The interesting things to note, of course, are, again, this is just rumor. Of course, we don't know for sure. Nothing's been announced by Netflix yet. But they have hired someone from the gaming industry, a former EA exec, who maybe, obviously is there's a reason for doing that. And yeah, the idea of it being at no additional cost is kind of intriguing. So that's what Netflix does, right? Netflix just wants your $13.99 a month or whatever it is now. And they've always only ever done that. They've raised the price slowly over time. Of course, it used to be like $5.99 or whatever.
Oh, it was that? Yeah, you're right. It was that cheap.
Yeah, it was real early. Yeah. And they have raised the price, but nevertheless, like, they don't do what freaking Disney Plus does, and they're like, you have to have Premier access in order to get the newest, greatest stuff.
Yet.
So, yeah, well, but they haven't done that despite all their competition. But the problem is, the competition's crushing them pretty hard right now.
Yeah.
Disney Plus and HBO have really started to eat a piece of Netflix's pie, and here they come with video games to try to get more subscribers back, potentially. But again, this is another one of those things where it's like, that could go either way. But here's where it gets interesting. Another article points out from Video Games Chronicle that we'll link off to, but I'll paraphrase here. There was some people doing some data mining, and they discovered in the source code for this stuff that Ghost of Tsushima was present in this list of potential games coming to Netflix as a platform. So does that mean there is a partnership with Sony? This one is a question mark.
Oh!
Is there a potential? Because if Netflix really wanted to get this thing off the ground, then what better way than to offer Sony exclusive titles for streaming? That could be because of a greater move to push Ghost of Tsushima as a PC port and stuff like that. But if they're offering that on you don't see Amazon or Google Stadia offering that stuff on their streaming platforms, so that's pretty crazy. And that might, again, for as much as I was poo-pooing the idea, if they decide to get the right partner with them, in this case Sony, then maybe it's got a chance. I don't know.
Everyone forgets that Sony has a whole subscription streaming service called PlayStation Now. Yeah. And all it takes is the right business moves to happen where Netflix can then tap right into the same service in the back end that PlayStation Now uses and pipe a game like Ghost of Tsushima right to your smart TV with a Bluetooth connected controller.
Right.
Will it work? How well is it? What is the status of PlayStation Now? And it's okay. I've played with it. It's all right. So will it even be up to snuff? How will this work? There's a whole lot of questions unanswered. Nothing has been officially announced yet. But you never know. This is kind of neat. We've always talked about in speculation about how Game Pass could end up being an app that's on a TV, right?
Yeah.
This is like that kind of adjacent where now Netflix is trying to carve a piece of the pie where it's like, come to Netflix and get your subscription dollars worth more by playing some games that they offer. I'm going to be that idiot
that's like streaming a game on Netflix on my PlayStation 5 app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I would 100% do that if like they partner with Microsoft as well. Like if they were able to partner with enough big names, and there were games that I could play through my Netflix subscription that I can't play on my PlayStation natively, then yeah, I'd stream it, just try it out. So,
and you think about like how the money works. So if Netflix signed a deal with Microsoft and Sony and offered both Microsoft and Sony games, and then Microsoft and Sony get the money from Netflix, Netflix gets the money from us, and everybody wins, and there's more games available on more platforms, which actually crazy, rewind the clock and rewind back to our Steam conversation, the fact that now there's a Steam Deck platform, the more platforms people can experience video games, the better video games will get in general, the healthier the industry is, and the more I am for games being everywhere we are. It doesn't it doesn't matter. I'm not a fanboy. I have my preferences, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna diss a organization or a company for putting games on something. So some people might poo-poo, be like, oh, Netflix, oh, you're just trying to do the whole cell phone game free-to-play market thing like Facebook did way back in the day. Or more people can play more games. It's fantastic. It's awesome. So yeah, this is a great drop in barrier of entry into gaming and an exposure to video games across more people. It's fantastic. Grandma can play Ghost of Tsushima. Rumor Smart TV.
I'm going to fire off the last few things because we don't really need to do much talking about them.
We'll skip the delays. Who cares about that?
Well, I'll just say real quick. In this week in delays, Rainbow Six Extraction and Riders Republic have been delayed, as well as Ghostwire Tokyo that was supposed to come out this year for the PlayStation as an exclusive. that is once again also owned by Bethesda, or made by Bethesda, owned by Microsoft. It's one of those weird ones, but that's been delayed as well. So 3 delays. The last thing, a story that we have, and then we'll address any final comments, is Atlas said they are teasing, or they've teased that there are 7 upcoming Persona announcements.
Woo!
Those aren't necessarily all games, but they have confirmed that they are working on Persona 6. So that is likely to be announced in some way, shape, or form soon.
And the reason for all of this stuff coming out by Darren Bronthus over at GameSpot, developer Atlas is marking the 25th anniversary of the Persona franchise, and with some big news. As the studio teased, not 1 but 7 announcements are coming. These reveals won't be made all at once. Atlas tweeted that it will spread the silver anniversary announcements out over the course of the year, the first of which will be made this September, and the final one coming in autumn of next year. So starting in September.
Me Persona 4 Golden on my PlayStation. That's what I want. Persona 4 Golden.
I have a copy on my Vita, which is a console that everyone should own.
PlayStation 5.
That'd be fantastic.
I want it on
Sony needs to listen to the fact that there's a Nintendo Switch and now a Valve Deck, and they need to make their own Vita 2.
Vita 2?
Yes! I will lose my mind if there's a Vita 2. Fully backwards compatible with all PSP titles and Vita titles. Let's go.
That sweet SSD architecture built right into it. May not be able to run at 4K 60 frames per second.
Don't care. I'll do it 720. Trophies, baby.
If it loads it as fast as my PS5, I'm into it too, man. So
Trophies.
All right, let's. That is where we will end then for the day. So if you are watching this live, then thank you for being here. We're so happy you're here. I don't see any other comments to respond to, so you need to hit the subscribe button if you want to see us be on live more. And other than that, if you're watching later on YouTube, then also subscribe there so you can see any of the YouTube content we may be putting out in the future. And also go over to twitch.tv if you wanted to catch us live. And Termite will tell you all the other places you can interact with us if you so choose to.
Super quick. If you're on YouTube, hit the like. We would like that. It helps the algorithms bubble us up to get attention. If you are more curious about content that we create, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing site with all of our social media outlet links, as well as our podcast platforms. We have a podcast that goes live every week, Monday at midnight. So check us out. Wednesday and 2 days, I am playing the 6th and final level of Turok 2 right here, twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. This will be the first and only game that I have exclusively streamed. From beginning to end, I've only ever played it on stream. And I'm finishing the last level. I won't beat the game yet because I do have to go back and backtrack and get some collectibles, but it's going to be a super fun journey, so I anticipate finishing the 6th level this Wednesday, and then in 2 weeks after that, I will go do collectibles with everyone and possibly beat the last boss and 100% the game. It's going to be super fun. So
you may be streaming in the week between there as well.
Hey, as soon as your baby is, that could be. So, but our audience doesn't know that, so you need to go to twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be made aware of when we go live, and follow us on some social media platforms so you can get some latest cutting edge news.
Cutting edge. All right, see you later.